Okay, let's go to the septic systems. I want to start by basically identifying to you the general parts of a septic system. So what happens after you flush that water or drain it down the sink or whatever? It leaves the home through the main sewer line, and then it's going to hit the tank. Now the tank's going to have some baffles in there, or at least one. The idea being that you're going to have a scum on the top, and you're going to have sludge on the bottom, and you want that stuff to be worked over by the bacteria that are actually in that tank, and you want that bacteria to turn all that nasty stuff into a cleaner water. We're relying on Mother Nature to do a lot of the work for us. Of course, if you got a brand new septic system, there's some chemicals you got to pour in there to get it kick-started. You got that tank that comes first. Then with the baffles, and it forces the water not to just flow through, but to do a difficult course so that you can have different areas accomplish different things. Again, you want to trap the scum on the surface on the first half of the tank, and then trap the sludge on the bottom and have that be available for the septic tank pumper to get to, because one surefire way to make sure that the rest of the system fails is to send that nasty sludge crap into the leach field, and the leach field is what's next and last. So the water goes into the tank, it runs through some baffles, it goes out of the tank from the top side, and now that water is clean-ish. So now the point of that water is just to be drained away naturally and properly and carefully. So the way that gets done is it drains to a leach field. Maybe you've got a couple of lanes where the soil has a leach line in it. Maybe you've got a perforated pipe and it's going out there and it's draining down into the soil. What happens when a septic system fails is basically you get that nasty sludge that should remain in the tank that instead goes into the leach lines. Now the leach lines can drain water. What they can't drain is sludge, dirt, debris, plastic, or those sorts of things. If that gets into your leach lines, it's going to plug things up. Now instead of draining, the system is going to just try to flood or overflow, and you're not going to get good draining, or you might have water up on the surface where it's not supposed to be. One way of determining that the water is not draining down is if you see that there is more greenery directly above the leach field, that's because it's being watered by the leach field, and that's a problem. Or if you actually see strips directly above each of the leach lines, that's a problem. You know, we're getting water where it should not be. It should be going straight down and not feeding anything like that. Or if you see settlement directly above, then again, we know that water is getting up there. It's causing the soil above those leach lines to settle, and that's a failure, and then it's going to be time to bring the backhoe out and redo that leach field. A septic system should last, the official number is about 50 years. I've seen a lot of people who have a septic system that has been in longer than 50 years, but the official number is 50 years. If you do good maintenance on it, you suck that thing out at regular intervals, that's the number that is the estimated service life for a septic system. Now, there's a couple of terms I would have you be aware of. There's aerobic decomposition and anaerobic decomposition. And well, basically what it means is the aerobic decomposition means you're doing decomposition in the presence of oxygen. And that's generally what you want to look for. But in a septic tank, you're going to have that sludge at the bottom, and there's just no two bits about it. You're going to have anaerobic. That basically means it's going to stink more, and it's going to be nasty, and when it gets sucked out, it's going to smell a lot more awful because we're doing this without oxygen to be a part of the process. Now the leach field, in order to get one permitted, you've got to start with what's called a perk test or a percolation test. And basically what that means is a perk test proves that a certain amount of water will drain over a certain period of time. In order to pass your perk test, you've got to prove that water will drain. And one way of knowing if the system is failing is when water stops percolating or leaving the system at that particular rate. Soil types play a huge part in that. Again, if you've got a lot of rocks or gravel, it's going to drain a lot faster. If the lines are completely plugged with soil and sludge and nastiness and feminine hygiene products and grocery bags and toothbrushes, then yeah, it's going to be time to get the guy with the backhoe out and create another one. It's just highly variable to really know what's going on there. So the best and only way to inspect and find out what's going on is to have your client or the seller actually pump that tank. First off, you're going to want to find out what their routine is. If they've gone 7 years or 10 years, you want to know if they had maybe a family of 12, if they had a family of 2, and just find out what's been the history of that home and how often they pumped it. With that tank empty, then the technician can take a look in there and see what's going on and give you an opinion. If your family is a family of 12, your clients have this big massive family and they're moving into a place where maybe it used to be a family of 2, obviously they're going to want to plan on pumping out that tank a lot more often than the previous family. This is the kind of guidance that your home inspector will probably not give them, and if he doesn't, you might want to decide whether you want to serve them in that way. We'll be right back with some other factors.